entitled The Use of Repetitive, Predictable Pattern Text to Teach High-Frequency Words. To begin, let's look at the existing research and literature around this topic. High-frequency words, as described by Rollins and Inverness, are words that are automatically known where simply the sight of the word's spelling provides immediate access to its pronunciation and meaning. These are words that are common in kindergarten level texts, and in this research, the words high-frequency words and sight words will be used interchangeably. There are a few different reasons why researchers have shown that teachers teach high-frequency words to students. Moulet and her team of colleagues explain that high-frequency word identification is a skill that underlies students' ability to read fluently and to understand what they are reading. Rollins and Inverness explore this point as well when they talk about students who have strong high-frequency word identification can focus their reading energy on making meaning and comprehending the text. And finally, Brose, with other researchers, found that these words, which are interjected frequently between other more content-specific and book-specific vocabulary, give meaning and cohesion to the text students are reading. Researchers have also looked at how these words can be taught. Moulet explored two different practices. The first was traditional drill and practice. In this model, words are written on cards. The teacher models reading the words aloud. The student then reads the words, and feedback is provided as needed to the student should they miscue or make an error. The word sheets example is very similar, except that the words are written as an array that resembles more traditional text that students read. Incremental rehearsal was explored in research by Peterson, Brown, and Burns. And in this example, the researcher reads a word, the student repeats it, the student is then asked to use the word in a sentence, and the word is added to their pile of ongoing words that are practiced. There are two variations of incremental rehearsal. One, IRV, vocabulary, a definition is provided, and one, IRC, context, the researcher would share a sentence first. In the SWIFT model, or sight word instruction is fundamental to reading, explored by Brose and team, the words are again presented on cards, and this time on the back there is a sentence written that shows the word in context. The words are then used throughout the academic day in different settings, whether it be kinesthetic work, auditory, or visual. Even more context-dependent strategies begin with the language experience approach. Huang, in his article, looks at how this approach is highly effective with adult English language learners. In this case, the students share sentences about a topic or just in general, and the teacher scribes a book based on their language and what they shared. This book is then used as the content for further lessons and as a resource that students learn from. The magic paper approach, which was researched by Aldrive, is a variation of the language experience approach in that the students are given a word wall with target words for them to include in their oral sentences, and when the sentences are scribed, they are done so on a special type of paper that provides a copy to the students immediately. Now, those language experience approaches provided some context for the research that was completed, which will be reviewed now. This particular action research investigated the use of repetitive, predictable pattern text, which we will explore later, as a way to teach students to correctly identify and understand high-frequency words. The research found that the intervention did in fact support students in reading these words in context, in isolation, and using them in their writing. To explain a little bit further what was done, this research was completed with 11 kindergarten students that were across 2 classes. The students were broken into 3 different reading groups based on ability as determined by the Fountas and Pinnell benchmark assessment. 2 groups of students were reading below grade level expectations, and 1 group was reading above. The students in this research study are all English language learners, and their first language, or the language spoken primarily at home, is Spanish. The research took place in a private independent American school, and the school is located in a Central American capital city. For the intervention, the first step required establishing baseline data. All students were assessed on 22 sight words in isolation. The words were printed on cards and the researcher displayed them to the students. They were marked as either correct or incorrect. Based on these results, the researcher wrote repetitive, predictable pattern text with words that were common miscues for that group of students. These books were then utilized during guided reading over a 2-week period. Towards the end of the research time, students were asked to add their own page to the book, and then they were assessed on how they read the words in context as well as in isolation. If we look over here, this is an example of the words that were miscued for students in one of the groups. You can see on this left column that says miscued words, these were the words that were errors out of the original 22 that students read. From there, the researcher identified specific words that were common miscues for many students. The words chosen were the, are, with, in, is, and my. The right column of data shows the miscued words from those target words. As you can see, students had missed anywhere between 2 and 5 of the target words. From there, the researcher created the predictable pattern texts, which are pages in a book that repeat a similar stem and only 1 or 2 words change. In this case, the bananas are with the apples, the bananas are in the cart. Every page is similar. 2 items are together, 1 item in the cart. This went through on a similar pattern until the final page that typically has a bit of a pattern switch, and this time it said, my food is in the cart. When it was time for assessment, another set of 2 pages were added to the book to test student reading in context. The pattern was the same, but the students had not seen these particular pages prior to the day that they were asked to read them. These pages said, the tortillas are with the bread, the tortillas are in the cart. Now let's look at the results of the research specifically for the students who participated. The positive news is that all students made progress across all areas being assessed, which were reading words in isolation, reading words in context, as well as using the words in writing with appropriate grammatical structure. The results of this study tell us that using predictable, repetitive pattern books is an effective source to teach high-frequency words to students. We also learned that this research supports the importance of differentiating this instruction for students. Many times, schools and teachers operate with a calendar and a scope and sequence for teaching words, but each of these groups had different identified target words, which shows the importance of matching the words taught to the needs of a group of students. If we look over here, this shows a bit more specifically the results. As you can see on the left, these are miscued target words in context. In group 1, 1 student made an error of 1 word. In group 2, all students read all target words appropriately. And in group 3, 1 student made 1 error. On the right side, you will see the assessment of how students did in isolation. In group 1, 2 students made an error one with 2 words, one with 1. In group 2, no students miscued. And in group 3, 1 student miscued on the same word that they also had miscued in context. The research does show that there was major growth for students who had previously miscued anywhere between 2 and all 6 of the target words, and now the most that any student is miscuing is 2, and that shows the progress that was made. Now, with any research, there are some limitations and delimitations to the results. To begin, the schedule was set by the classroom teacher, and because the school operates in a dual language program, the students only receive reading instruction in English 2 days a week. In this case, it was on Tuesday and Wednesday, and then the students did not receive reading again until the following Tuesday or 6 days later. This may have affected some of the results. Additionally, the students chosen for this research study had been identified previously by their teachers as needing support with high-frequency words based on assessments from trimester 1. Finally, the setting of this research is somewhat unique. It was following an English language learner population, but in a wealthy environment in a private American school. There is definitely an opportunity to research further this topic. This research used a modified version of the language experience approach in that target words were selected, but the books were written based on the oral language of the teacher and not the students. It might be interesting to explore how students writing their own books with the target words might have yielded the same or different results. Additionally, this research focused only on kindergarten students. It would be interesting to see how other grade levels with high-frequency words that might be more challenging could benefit from this type of intervention. Finally, the researcher considered the possibility of pairing this contextual intervention with something in isolation, like traditional drill and practice or incremental rehearsal. Here are the sources that were used for the research paper and presentation. Thank you for your attention, and hopefully this will benefit you and your students.